All right. Hello and welcome back to part 4 of the Sleigh in Notion webinar series. We are running, helping the North Pole crew get up and running in Notion. Today, we will be talking about relations, which are a core feature of Notion's databases and allow you to start to hook together a lot of different data sources and databases to get an organized process in place. I will dive right in. Okay, let's start with our Notion application. You can see again, I've got a favorited document here, or a favorited page here, which is down in the private section. Let's open that up. So when we talk about relations in Notion and with databases, we like to think about what assets or what data items need to be connected for us to have a holistic view of whatever we're looking at. And uh, for this session, we're going to help all of you get running with the reindeer fleet and the different items that clearly we've been trying to leave some breadcrumbs in. If I look at my reindeer station in Notion here, I start to see, okay, we've got health checks and training logs and grooming logs. These assets right now, though helpful, because I can come in here and how to use this page. I've got daily and weekly tasks and different checklists, which are great. But what we are missing is any sort of history or traceability, something that shows, hey, Dasher has gotten his weekly health check or flight test flights and all that. So Notion, super helpful in coming up with these little checklists and allowing you to check them off. But you can immediately see one of the problems with just using a checklist as a standalone page. If I check this off, how do I know who got that test? And then for the next time, what am I going to do? Am I going to create a new page every time, or am I going to uncheck these? Or um, that's where things get dicey, and that's where our databases can help, especially when we use relations to tie these in a cohesive way into related data. So we like to start with some visual, some understanding of what we're going to try to be tying together. And in this case, um, we put together a basic mermaid diagram. This is a little sugar feature in this webinar, but I'll touch on it real quick. Notion has built in the ability to render diagrams in the mermaid format. If you have not heard of mermaid, it allows you to produce draw.io style data visualizations uh, through text content. So you can edit this and maybe instead of reindeer fleet, I say reindeer crew, and these visuals will automatically get updated. So what I've done here is put two together, and I have them in the preview mode so that we don't have to look at the source code behind it, even though the source code for mermaid diagrams is certainly readable. For our reindeer crew or for our reindeer fleet, we know that there's test flights, we know that there are cleanings, and we know that there are health checks. And it's really important for the reindeer wranglers to understand who's ready to go or who still needs a test flight or which one is stinking up all the stalls. This is going to help give immediate visibility to those caretakers, to help provide the best care that they can. Another way that people might think about this is through something like an entity relationship model or diagram. This is pretty technical, and we're not actually going to be doing, these specific fields. But when we talk about relations with Notion databases, it is the same thing as any other relational data system where you're able to link together different database tables or data sources, to put it in Notion's lexicon. So what we're looking at is each member of the reindeer fleet is going to have one or more health checks, one or more cleanings, and one or more test flights. So this is going to be basically what we're building, and it is for this general construct. Let's dive in. We already have a reindeer fleet database. So if I look into my reindeer fleet page here, I can see it is a database. I only have one view. It's a table view, and currently I have a health status. So already the elves have set up a pretty nice, this gives them an immediate view to say, okay, well, we need to get somebody over to Dancer, get the doctor in here. We need Prancer to get a splint on their hoof or whatever they might be injured by. But that's it. All we have is injured. Now we could have notes in here that says, the tail is too snowy or whatever. Nose is too red for Rudolph, whatever it might be. But I lose that note as soon as I change it. Now I can look in the history of these items, but what I'd rather see is a list of the health checks. And perhaps in this session, we will show what a roll up is, which is, being able to show, okay, well, I actually only want to see the most recent health check for this reindeer. But for now, let's just start focusing on taking some of these items that the team has already put together and constructing it in a more database friendly way. If we recall from last time, each database has this context menu, this settings menu, which will show me my view settings and also my data source settings. So I have a couple of options here. Previously on Sleigh and Notion. Now, previously in Notion, you really only had one option for trying to tie together multiple databases. I would have to come in here and say, give me an empty database, and this will be called Reindeer Health Checks, perhaps. And this would allow me to start doing a relational property that links these health checks into the reindeer fleet. But for those of us that use Notion before, I believe it was September when they released an update, this got kind of unwieldy pretty quickly, where we had a lot of databases all over the place when really many of these databases were only tied to each other. They were within the same mental construct of, my reindeer health checks is really a part of my reindeer fleet. I don't want to have 5 different database pages, when really I think of it internally as one grouped database. So I'm gonna move this to trash, and we are going to touch on this data source settings area and the manage data sources. So before September, it was one data source is one database. Data source was not a term within Notion. Since that latest update, they have given us the ability to actually have multiple data sources within one database. So this is like having multiple tables within your database. Now you can do that through the data source construct. So I'm going to add that in here because these are all related to the reindeer fleet. And when I add a new data source, I get the same sort of context menu that I get when I create a new database. The item I'm going to choose right now is the new empty data source. So I click new empty data source, and you can see my database name is automatically, it looks like it's being suggested to be changed to Reindeer Fleet and new data source. And I have this grayed out new data source area. So what I'm going to do here is say, okay, this is the reindeer health checks. And my overall database, I want to just call reindeer data. Or maybe I want to be clever, rain data. Why not? Um, there's some things I'll want to do immediately that are cosmetic, but have a big impact. So instead of calling this table, and these tabs up here are my database views, and each database view can be tied to one data source. Um, but I'll call this, the fleet or directory, whatever we want to, roster perhaps. And my other view, I'm going to just call health checks. So this view setting, the name is a view setting, is different than the data source settings because, like we saw with the elf operations in the toy production tracking database, you can have multiple views for the same data source. That's what these tabs are. If I go back to my rain data, I have my roster and my health checks. And when I hover over it, I'll see that this is tied to the reindeer health checks data source, and this is tied to the reindeer fleet data source. That is what the that popover is showing me. So I've got my roster. Now I want to start doing health checks. Before I start modifying properties, let's go and look at what a health check is for these reindeer. Looks like we've got some daily tasks, some weekly tasks, some logging notes, and care checks. So the weekly health care check has all of these items. I'm going to go ahead and favorite this so I can come back to it easily. And the daily healthcare checks has a different item set. I'm going to favorite this as well so I know where it is. Let's go back into the rain data database and go into the health checks. The name property is by default here, but it doesn't give me any other properties to start. The two properties that immediately come to mind are, one, is this a weekly health check or a daily health check? So I can do that. I will click new property name, and I'm going to choose select because it really can only be one or the other. So let's choose select. And when I choose that, so now I can tell it's a select property. I generally don't change the icons for the properties because uh, you're just introducing confusion for no reason. So I usually leave that as is so I can tell at a quick glance what type of property it is. When I created this select, I didn't get any options by default. I can add them now, or I can create a new page and I'll just call this temp or something. And in here I can say weekly. This is not an option yet, so I can create it. And I can say, no, it's not weekly, it's the daily home. So, okay, create daily. That's great. That now helps me identify the health check that was run. And again, this is my log of health checks. So every time one of our elf MDs goes in, or elf RD, reindeer doctor, goes in and performs a health check, they'll be able to enter a new record and say, this was today and it was with Blitzen or something, or whatever I want to just, the name is a necessary property, but for us, a lot of the data really gets stored in the properties or within the page data itself. Some of the databases, we need to have a name. Technically, you could leave it empty, but you encounter some difficulties if you do that. So we put a name in. We say, okay, this is a weekly check. I'm Dr. Herbie, the elf, now an MD, not just a dentist. But who am I performing the health check on? I could create a new property and I could make it a select. I could say, oh, this is a list of the different reindeer, and I'm going to select one from that list, similar to how we did with the toy making, toy production DB assigned elf here. This is a selection. That works. It's constrained and it's limited. The biggest problem with following this approach is that what happens when your elves come in and out, one of them needs to take a shift for a few hundred years at the South Pole, or one of them's moving into the cobbler career path and they're no longer at the North Pole. They're still going to show up in here because this is a select list that lives independently of any sort of elf directory that you might have where you would be capturing that data. So what we do instead of having a select option for the reindeer is we scroll down, we scroll, and we get to some of these fun properties where they're no longer simple properties. They are some different type of complexity where it could be a formula. This is a common one. But what we're looking at today, obviously from our session title of Run Relations Run, we're going to choose relation. Now, when we select the relation property, we must select the associated data source. You can have a property that's a relation that actually links to itself. So we could have a health check here that links to itself. Maybe it's something like last health check or whatever. But for us, we're looking at which reindeer received this health check. So I can start to search for it, but Notion does a good job of suggesting the relevant ones automatically. And I will choose Reindeer Fleet. And I actually have a couple of additional options in here that I need to specify. The limit, so we have to decide, can you perform a health check on multiple reindeer at the same time? For us, no. I want this to be limited to one page. So one page um, in my health check can be tied to one reindeer. This is going to give us some good constraints. And if we remember from the entity relation diagram, we did have it so that each health check could be only for one reindeer. So this ties with that. Now, this two-way relation, this allows you to manage the property on the reindeer fleet, showing backlinks to the current database. You might not always want this, and this is something that you can add on after the fact or remove after the fact just by editing the relation property. This is something that I want, and it's because when I do this, I'll be able to, from the reindeer roster or the reindeer fleet, view or any views that deal with the reindeer roster. Let's use the right term. I have it called reindeer fleet as the data source. So any view that I have that's referencing the reindeer fleet, I'll be able to surface these health checks as well. The related property name that shows up is what you're going to see on the related data source. So in the reindeer fleet data source, what is this going to be called? I could change it, and I think I will. Instead of calling it reindeer health checks, well, I already know that I'm talking about reindeer because I'm on the reindeer fleet page. I'll add health checks as the related property name. Like everywhere in Notion, we have these wonderful tooltips and helpers that will open up the Notion knowledge base and provide some very helpful, relevant documentation that answers additional questions about this. Again, even if you've done this a lot, I always recommend, click on these, do the onboarding, do the continuous discovery that Notion is trying to provide to you as a user. Let's add this property. All right. So what we now have in our reindeer health checks property or in our reindeer health checks view, which is the referencing the reindeer health checks data source, I have a new property called reindeer fleet. Now, when I click on this, I'm seeing something that is similar to a select property, but these are linked to what we would see in our reindeer fleet data source. So Rudolph is with a PH here. If I come over to the roster and I edit this so that it's with an F, I come back to my health checks and I go to select. You can see Rudolph now has an F. If I select Rudolph, so this is a weekly health check for Rudolph. If I come back into my roster, well, now I see a health check showing up under Rudolph with the title or the name of that database item or that data source item. So over here, the fact that I called it today, and I did something pretty quickly that I will touch on again. If I just type the word today, it's just today. And if I come back tomorrow, it's just going to say today. If I do the @ sign anywhere, I can choose a date, and this has significance because it's going to be relative and relative to whatever the day it is that you're viewing this. So I'll put today in, and I like to do this for a lot of the database names where I don't really want to put Rudolph's December 12th health check as a database name because a lot of that can be implied. And I could have a property, and I might want a property as well that is, health check date. This is the suggested health check date property. I could do that, and I might want to do that. I also get some things automatically, like the created date. Those are by default being stored, or you can surface them. Created time. This is automatically captured right here. So what we've done now is create a health checks data source that ties back to the actual reindeer and will allow me to see which ones have not gotten a health check, or which I doubt we'll get to today. We could have a roll up property that shows me, you know, how long ago the latest health check was, and all of that. But we're already starting to piece this data together for an individual health check and an actual reindeer in a data linked manner. The next thing that we can do very quickly, because I bookmarked or I favorited this daily health check, I'm going to just grab all this, copy it, go back to where I was, come to my templates. If we remember from last time, we could do templates for a new database record. If I just click new, it's going to make an empty item. And for those of you who are getting started with Notion databases, you'll find that you create a lot of empty records by accident. That's okay. You can always just select them and delete them. And that is very simple. You'll find that you do that less and less. So for this, I actually want to create a daily health check option in here, which maybe I will say it's today, and this is the date when duplicated. I'm going to say this is a daily item, and I'm going to paste the checklist in here. So you saw I actually could have done a paste and sync, and that would have created a synced block, but I don't want that. I want this checklist to be something that they can perform, that the doctor can perform and go through and click every time, that it's going to be specific to that checkup. If I come back and choose a new one, I could choose this, and I can already see, well, today probably isn't giving me enough clarity, so I'm going to say today daily. I can create a new one. It auto selects daily. It automatically fills this out. And then really what I'm left with is as the RD is I create a new entry. I choose, okay, this is for Blitzen. Yep, these look good. And maybe I put in, maybe I forget these two or whatever, and I could put in notes, general notes, and I can add this to the template as well. Let's go ahead and also bring over the weekly health and care checks. So I'll copy this, I'll go back, I'll come up to the template, create a new template, do the same thing with today and weekly, automatically select this is a weekly item and paste this in here. Now, when I go to create a new record for a health check, and this is where we like to think about how do we do training for the reindeer doctors? Well, we can say when it's time to perform a health check, choose one of these two templates based on which it is. Once you decide, or when once you choose, okay, this is a weekly health check, they will see that the checklists are already in here, and we say as a part of training, and we can create training documents and all of that. Ideally, the best process is one that requires minimal or no onboarding or no training. So we can also do things that will flag if they forgot to do the reindeer fleet selection. Um, but what we are able to, instead of telling them create a new record and paste in the checklist, or create a new record and delete the daily if it's a week, we can have templates for weekly versus daily, and that gives us the ability to pre-populate page content and property values. So things like the select here. So relations, templates, viewing the relation properties on your source, on your sort of core underlying data source. Um, that's all in place. We can start to see. So there I did. I accidentally created a new page without using the template. So I'm going to come up here and say, okay, well, Rudolph is going to have a daily check as well. Let's search. There's Rudolph. I can come through here in my database here, in my view of this health checks data source. I'll have two entries that link to Rudolph, and back in the roster, I will see Rudolph has two different database related pages. Um, I'm going to have to do roll-ups next time, and because that's where things get very fun, where you can really just surface the latest one, or we can pull in the property, because we'll find we're going to show this to the elves, and they're going to say, "Hey, well, you didn't capture what the scoring mechanism was, because that really matters for us from a health check standpoint, or from a grooming standpoint." For like the calculating the health status in that regard. So we'll add more properties, or this is where we like to, I'll start to let the teams add their own properties and then come back and help them refine them. But we can do the same thing for these weekly grooming sessions. And let's do that. And you can see how quickly we can do this. So I'm going to go, I click the plus here. It says, hey, do you want to add a new view? I actually want to add a new data source. So we're going to do this again quickly. What's the data source? Well, this is groomings, is what we'll call it. The properties that we're looking for, the relation again, this is the main one where we want to link it to the reindeer fleet. We will say, a grooming, actually, we want to limit that just to one page, and we do want it to be a two-way relation. I'm fine with it being called groomings. So here we have it again. I will want to come up to a new template. I'll say just today and paste in the checklist. And now we have this. And let's add a property that says, status, so that we can see, okay, what was the status of this grooming? I'm going to rename this view to say groomings, because I know that's what it is. And in my roster, I can see, all right, not only do I have health checks, but I have the groomings list here, where if I come in and create a new page, well, which member of the reindeer fleet? This one's Rudolph again, and the status was uh, a pass or whatever they want to call it, um, because all of these things look good for us. What we could decide to do for something like this is maybe full coat brushing, demangle. Maybe all of these are actually properties. That gives us the ability to enforce a select one item. We don't have time to do that today, but maybe by next time the elves will have decided to refactor that themselves. Um, so we're at 1 o'clock. We've not done the test flights, but you can start to see already how these different data sources can build off of each other in a much more sustainable way than just random checklists that are pasted all around. And we'll see next week how you can use these relations to have views of things like what is the reindeer that needs the next test flight. And if I were to, I know we're over time, but that's okay, do test flights here, for the test flights, I might decide for this relation, I actually don't want to limit it to one reindeer. I do want to have a two-way relation. And that what that means is that I can choose. So this is a today name, or this is a. I could say this is the reindeer games pre-flight or something like that. From here, I can choose a bunch of them. I can choose. Well, this is Donner and Blitzen and Prancer and everybody, or a certain subset. That is because for the test flights, we think, yeah, very rarely are you going to only go and do a test flight with just one reindeer. And what we have over here is that same relation, same back relation, same two-way relation. And now all of these different reindeer, which, maybe this is what injured Prancer was, the reindeer games, actually. All of these are linked to the same database item for that test flight. In here, I can, if I select this, it's going to take me over to that actual grooming or health check or test flight very quickly, where I can see, and probably in here we would have, what's the sortie they're going to run for that test flight, or what were the results of it, or what was the scoring. So you have these database relations that are linking and very easy access to go and grab from it. I know this was accelerated. We're going to get faster and faster with these trainings so that we can cover more ground. Next time, we're going to show some of how the power of this foundational information about what a relation is, how that can actually be leveraged for your workflow or process in a way that is more than just here's a database view, a spreadsheet style view that links data, but one that is tuned to a process for something like the doctor themselves or the test flyer or the groomer. And yeah, and the last bit is that for all of these, so maybe the health check, I also want to know who was the crew that performed it. So I could also link this to the elf directory. I could say that for a health check, you could have multiple elves doing that. So same construct applies here, just like how we can have the reindeer fleet linked. We can also link and say, yeah, this was Mary and Jinglefoot. And if I go to my elf operations and go to my elf directory, or if I do a search for elf directory, I will see the reindeer health checks relational property behind it here linking over. So you can do one data source that's linked to several through different relations and build up a pretty complex, but also flexible and adaptable system that will help you track all this different data. All right, well, we are 4 and about to be 5 minutes over, so thank you all for the time today. Hopefully the rest of the toy making today goes well, and that this was a refreshing way to spend your milk and cookie break. Look forward to the next session where we start to take these relations mean, I could do 12 sessions on relations only because this is something we use heavily internally for all of our processes that link them together. But that's where we'll be covering what you can really do with this from a process standpoint, and then how you can leverage things like roll-ups to get even more power out of that. Thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.